Hello, everyone, and welcome to the World War II Solitaire board game channel. Today, we're going to be going to a museum. I went to Arsenalen, Sveriges Försvarsfordons Museum in Strängnäs, Sweden, and I thought I would take you all with me. So, Arsenalen, the arsenal, the museum roughly translates to Sweden's war vehicles museum. So the focus of this museum is actually Swedish vehicles, but they have a very nice collection of also vehicles from other nations, especially Germany, which isn't that strange since Germany is rather close to Sweden geographically. I went here mainly for one reason, and that was actually to see the King Tiger. So here we have it, the King Tiger, the Tiger 2. This Tiger 2 is borrowed from the Bovington Tank Museum in England. And this is a prototype Tiger, prototype number 2, with the prototype turret. And so it's it hasn't seen combat, this tank. And many people think this is called the Porsche turret, but it's not. All of the turrets for the King Tiger was produced by the Krupp, how you pronounce it. And the first 50 towers looked like this, and the remaining 442 tanks got the production turret, which was an improvement. And all of the turrets were made by Krupp, or however you go ahead and pronounce that. I gotta say, I had a lot of expectations seeing this tank. I mean, it's of course a legendary tank, and using this tank in different board games and seeing it in different board games, it's just an awesome, awesome thing. But when I saw it, that was not really how I felt it to be. It rather felt clumsy, too big, and my first reaction was, "Wow! I would not actually have liked to been inside of that thing, because yes, you are protected by a lot of armor, but that armor is not going to do you anything good when you're so slow, so immobile, and clumsy. You can get stuck, you can get bogged down." Yeah, that was at least my experience when I saw the tank. But of course, I mean the sheer size of it, the sheer size of the tank will command respect in that matter. But I didn't feel like I was very impressed by it, other than its actual physical size. We're actually King Tiger here in Sweden. We got it from the French, and unfortunately, we blew that tank up. We took it to a field and fired everything we could at it, just to evaluate the effect. And the only thing that remains of this Swedish King Tiger is the engine, the gearbox, and the hatch. So here we have some pictures and a little clip of those parts. And that, I believe that this tank was also perhaps not used in combat, uh, even though it was located in France. Uh, I want to remember that that tank was actually from a factory in Austria, and then for some reason transported to France after the war, and then it came to Sweden where we blew it up. and the remaining parts are now at this museum. So if you want to see some unique King Tiger parts, you could visit Strängnäs, Sweden, the Arsenal, even after we have returned the beautiful King Tiger to Bovington, England. So moving on, we have the Panzerkampfwagen 1, and yeah, it's a cute little tank, and very ironic to see it here displayed next to the King Tiger, because that really puts things into its proportions. Nice. I think this is not the first Panzerkampfwagen 1 I see, but looks to be in a very nice condition. This specific tank was made in 1936, and all the history we have from it is that it was used in Denmark, at least in the end of the war, and then it came to Sweden from Denmark in the end of 1945, and it has been renovated in the 1917s, but doesn't specifically say what kind of work was done on it. And here we have the Stug 3. So this tank is made in June 1941, and when it was made, it had the dark gray color, and then during the fall 1943 it was painted in kind of a yellow, dunkelgelb it's called in German, and also got a paste of this Simmerit, the kind of cement that would stop enemies from being able to use magnetic mines, although I don't think they ever used it. And then this tank came to Sweden in 1945, where it still had, of course, its original color and a lot of Simmerit. It was used extensively from 1946 and onwards for different types of field testings. And it came to the museum in roughly 1970. And unfortunately, it still had a lot of its original color and Simmerit, so it's a very unique tank. But unfortunately, someone decided to paint it in a dark yellow, the color you see now, or light yellow. So basically destroying the original color, which is a little bit sad. And this is a very unique tank actually, because the Stug 3, which was very good tank, it was made in over 10,000 of these made between 40 and 45, but only 150 of this model Aus D were made, which makes it a very unique tank. So this is one of the 150. So again, it's a little bit sad with that color when you have such a unique tank. All right, guys, moving on. We have the Jagdpanzer 38, the Hetze. This tank is produced in Czechoslovakia, I believe in 1944. Wasn't really any information about how this tank got to Sweden or if it had any history. And then we have the legendary Marder, the Marder 2, the Marder 2. This tank destroyer came to Sweden from Denmark in 1945, and it was supposed to be used for a lot of field testing, but they never did that. So in the 1970s they renovated it. They don't specifically say what was done, but they renovated this tank and then they put it at the museum. Next to the Hetzer here we have something very unique. It's a Goliath, also known as Sonderkraftfahrzeug 303. This specific Goliath is reproduction made with a lot of original parts. So it doesn't specifically say which parts were copied and which were original, but it's still pretty cool to see a Goliath with your own eyes. It's a little bit bigger than I thought it would be, but still, compared to the Hetzer which we see behind it, you can see that it's very small. Must have been, imagine sitting somewhere, perhaps covering a bridge, and you see one of these guys coming toward you. You gotta be like, what the heck is that? I gotta say that this was one of the best moments of the trip to the museum, seeing the actual M4A4 Sherman Firefly. After having played Patton's Best extensively, seeing a Sherman again was really cool. I've seen a few Shermans before traveling around the world, but one thing that strikes me every time is that you kind of get surprised about how big the Sherman actually is, because you're always thinking, or I'm talking subjective here, but I'm always thinking that Shermans are rather small tanks. I mean, compared to Panthers and Tigers and whatnots. But then once you see it, it's actually a very big tank. You can see here, compared to me as I'm inspecting the tank. See a lot of here on the side of the tank, behind the tracks. There's a lot of looks like kind of like shrapnel damage or something like that. But I don't know. It could be damage from just using this tank. There's also a step behind the tanks. You could actually go up and inspect the motor or the engine. And I gotta say, for me, that's just I have no interest in that whatsoever. But I have recorded it, so perhaps there's some nerd out there that really gets going on this. So here you go, mate. So here we have the Universal Carrier MK1. This is a pretty cool little thing, I think. After World War II, Sweden bought two of these as they were towing 57 millimeter cannons, M43, but none of those still remain. They have been, destroyed. So anyway, this specific universal carrier is a Ford Canadian one, and it's made in Ford Canada and were delivered to England in September 1942. Most likely, it's been used by Canadian troops during World War II. Then after the war, it was sold to Sweden, and then it was used in South Sweden at a vinegar factory, pulling lumber. And then in 1952, it was given to the Home Defense, Hemvärnet, Home Defense, I guess you would call that. And then in 1970, it was given to the Panzer Museum. So it has been renovated in the museum, and there are a few things which is done incorrectly. For example, the light and the side protections. Another really cool light vehicle here is the Willys Jeep. It's just so cool. I mean, I can't imagine a cooler looking vehicle, a car that is than a Willys Jeep. It's just so iconic. Sweden got some Jeeps in World War II, which were sent to Sweden from the US Army Air Force in late 1944. It was used as a service car to help American flyers who had to crash land in Sweden. And after war, the US Army started selling out a lot of their vehicles, and Sweden bought 166 Willys Jeeps. And here we have the famous Russian T-34 T-34 tank. T-34-85 has the upgraded gun. No story to tell about how it got to Sweden. Not much information was given. Here we have something really cool. This is an amphibious vehicle, T-37ATU. And this one was made in 1,200 examples. And during the Winter War, this was actually captured by Finnish soldiers at the Sala front, 18th December 1939. And and it was then in 1940 given to the Swedish Finnish war volunteers. And this was made in 1935, and it is the only one out of two only existing examples left in the world. It's painted as it was painted when it was given to Sweden, and if we take a look at the tower, we can see the sign still remains, which was put there by the Finnish soldiers as it was given over to Sweden. And the text here on the plaque means a gift from the Finnish army to the Swedish armed forces, taken at the Sala front during the Battle of Pelkosenniemi. So you can hear my name there, Niemi. That's pretty cool. Here's another really interesting piece of history. This is an US M3 Scout car, which were, of course, used widely during World War II. 20,000 of these were made. After the war, they spread around the world, and they were used in Congo, 1960 to 64, by the rebels. And this actual car was captured by Swedish United Nations soldiers, and they also captured 4 M8 Greyhound cars. And besides this one, they captured one more M3, and they named them Olga and Petronella Bell. So this is Olga Bell, as it was seen. It's painted as it was seen in Congo, 1963. So here we have the M8 Greyhound armored car. So this is first of all, this is a reproduction. It's not an original, and it has also a history tied with Sweden. It was used by rebels in Congo, 1960-64, and then it was actually 2 of these were knocked out by Swedish forces, Swedish United Nations forces, and then they were salvaged and repaired and became used by Swedes. So we could see some pretty funny stuff here on the Ring så kommer vi, means in Swedish, just call us and we'll come. Pretty fun. Unfortunate originals are not remaining. So here we have a Swedish tank. Now we're gonna get to the Swedish stuff for all of you who's interested in that stuff. This tank is Stridsvagn FM31, and only one of these were ever made. And this tank here was used until 1940 as a practice tank for drivers. And here we have Stridsvagn M37. This specific tank is of Czech Prague AHIV from CDK in Prague, and 46 of these were sent. The parts were sent to Oskarshamn in Sweden, and then they were put together there with engines and armor from Volvo and Avesta iron work. And this tank was used until 1953 in Sweden. And here we have Stridsvagn M38. And pretty cool little tank, which had a wheel, a steering wheel. And until 1941, 16 of these tanks were actually the only thing Sweden had in its arsenal to put up against other panzers. And this one served, these tanks, these models, served in the army until 1957. Here we have another very special tank, Stridsvagn M40L L60S3. This tank was made, 100 of these were made between 41 and 42 by Landsverk in Sweden. And they were used by foreign forces in 1956. 20 of these were sold to the Dominican Republic, and they were used in battles against the U.S. Marine Corps in '65, and they were used until the 1990s. Used in Sweden until 1957, and the hulls were destroyed, but the towers, the turrets, were used as on airfields to protect the airfields until 1995. And here's my favorite Swedish tank. This is Stridsvagn M42 tank M42, made by Landsverk and Volvo Sweden. Made between 43 and 45, and 282 of these were made. Pretty cool tank. It would weigh 22,500 kilos. Maximum speed would be 42 kilometers an hour. That is 26 miles per hour. Armament is 7.5 centimeter cannon and two 8 millimeter machine guns. The crew would be totally 4, and the armor is between 9 to 55 millimeter. And here we have the Stormartillerivagn M43. I think this one looks actually really cool. 36 of these were made, and they were used until 1973. In World War II, they were placed as artillery and grouped at the Norwegian border until the end of World War II. So now we get to the Swedish armored cars. Here we have Pansarbil M29. Only one of these were actually made, and they were used as cars to learn how to drive, basically, for newer armored cars. And this one was used as a driving teaching vehicle until 1946. And Pansarbil M31. This was also not very heavily produced, only made in 32 examples. And this car was also mainly used then as vehicles to learn how to drive, and this type was used until 1958. So here we have a really cool armored car, and I guess this would be my second favorite Swedish vehicle after Stridsvagn M42. This is the panzer car armored car M40 Lynx. So it's pretty cool history to this one. Was actually 30 of these were ordered in 1939 and made by Landsverk and produced at Volvo. And they were made according to Danish specifications. I'm guessing the Danish had ordered them, and then almost all of them were seized by the Swedish army as the war broke out. So this vehicle was, I think it looks to be a vehicle from 1939. I think it looks very, very modern. It was very liked by troops using it. It had, for its time, a high firepower. It was quiet. It was also quite reliable, and it could go at pretty high speeds. These were used until 1958. Here we have a Carden Lloyd MK V1. Is that 6? I think that's 6. Pretty cool storage disc as well. Delivered to Sweden 1931, and was meant to be used to tow Bofors 37mm infantry cannon. And then it was, after these attempts, which I'm guessing failed, it was transferred to the tank battalions. It was armed with a machine gun and used as a reconnaissance, used until 1939. And here we have a German howitzer, and Sweden bought several of these in 138 of these actually we bought in 1939. They were designed to be horse-drawn, but could be towed by trucks as well. And they were usually towed by Kluckner trucks, quite a few years later by the Swedes. These were in use in Sweden until 1980s. And here we have the 80 gun Panzervärnskanon M38. So made by Bofors, Sweden. It's a 37 millimeter gun, and it was partly that we sent the Finns during 1939 and 1940 to support the war against the invading Russians. And some pretty interesting story there too. We actually supplied the Finns with 131,000 rifles, 42 million rounds, 132 field cannons, 100 AA guns, 85 AT guns, 256,000 grenades, and 8 airplanes. And that's just what the Swedish army supplied the Swedish government. Besides that, there was a lot of people, gathering money, sending even more stuff to the Finns. We have this pretty cool command truck, Volvo B12 Per Albin bussen, the Per Albin bus. It was ordered after Russia's attack on Finland, and meant to be like a command center in case the government had to flee Stockholm. So only one of these were produced. The crew would consist of 5 people. And we can take a look inside here. Another pretty interesting command truck here is a Dodge WC63, which came to Sweden in 1945. This one was used until 1983. Here we have a car produced by Vidal & Son in Hamburg. This is a Tempo G12000. Pretty slick looking car. Used as a reconnaissance vehicle, and also used to tow guns. 37 millimeter, for example. And here we have a Swedish all-wheel drive truck, Terrängbil M42 VL. 816 of these vehicles were made during 1943 to 1947. We have another German truck. This is Terrängbil TGB M42. Kluckner A3000, 6,000 of these were made. Delivery was done by boat, and 2 of the ships were sunk. Some of the trucks were lost at sea. Payment was partly in the form of copper ore, used by the Swedes for towing howitzers. It was actually the first diesel engine truck used by the Swedish armed forces. And armed forces were against diesel engines at the time because they thought that the diesel oil congeals at low temperatures. And here we have the famous Terrängbil M42 SKP KP bil. Pretty, in my opinion, a pretty ugly vehicle. Patton actually liked this one. He said during a visit to Sweden. 300 of these were made, and they actually were used until 2004. And they were also used in war. They were used in Congo. They were used in Cyprus. And the United Nations vehicle were painted white. And because they're so big, they were usually called the White Elephant. We have another Swedish army truck. It's called Scania 335, and about 400 of these were made to the Swedish armed forces. Most likely, it's not confirmed, but most likely this specific truck was actually used right after World War II to go to Austria. A lot of trucks were sent over there to help the people that were really starving. And here we have a Swedish Armed Forces Volvo all-terrain command car. I think it looks really funny. Made by Volvo, I said yes. Pretty cool looking. 210 of these were made. It says the terrain performance tests were acceptable. We have some Swedish guns. We have a carbine, M94. A lot of these were made, about 130,000. Then we have the rifle M96, and about 500,000 of these were made, and they were used actually from 1896 to 1995, so for 99 years this rifle was used. And then we have automatgevär M42 automatic rifle, and 30,000 of these were used. They were used from 42 until 64. And I like this one. It kind of looks like the Finnish submachine guns, the kulsprutepistol, K-pist, that's submachine gun, SMG, M37, 39. 35,000 of these were used, made between 31 and 44. That's 900 rounds a minute, 9mm ammunition, just like the MP40. We have a picture of Patton, not an original photo, but this is was in the museum. That's Patton visiting, I'm guessing, a nearby regiment, and kind of like the Swedish tactics with the tanks, and he also really liked the KP car. That's that really ugly big panzer vehicle, which was called the White Elephant. He really liked that one. This is gonna be our last stop of the tour of the museum, guys. This is shrapnel from bombs which were dropped by Russian planes during World War II. These were dropped on the 22nd of February 1944, and there were bombs dropped all over the place, pretty close to Stockholm. And they were actually dropped just not far away at all from this museum in Strängnäs, as we can see on the map. And the official reason was incorrect navigation, which is preposterous because Finland is many hours away. But this is still the official reason given also by the Swedish government, which is a little bit strange. No one actually died, but one Swedish soldier lost his leg. Others were wounded. We see also some damage here. That the light, that's to put a candle in, so that was broken in two, and that's a shrapnel. It went inside of a window. A guy was sitting there and actually experienced this, and he had to throw himself on the floor, and then boom, and the shrapnel put the candle in half exactly where he was sitting. So if he had not jumped on the floor as he did, he would be been beheaded. And yeah, that marks the end of our tour at Arsenalen Museum in Strängnäs, Sweden. Highly recommend visiting this museum. I spent the whole day. I opened at 11 a.m. and I was there when it opened, and it closed at 5 p.m. and I left as it closed. So very cool place, so much stuff to see. I have not shown everything here, only the stuff that is related to World War II, and there's a lot of World War I and modern stuff as well. So there's much more to see. So again, I would highly recommend it. Okay, so if you're interested in World War II, I'd very much recommend you to subscribe to my channel. This channel is focused on board gaming, specifically World War II solitaire board gaming, but I might do some some fun World War II stuff like this in between my gaming sessions. So I'd be very happy if you would like to subscribe to my channel. I'll also be very happy if you would like to comment on my video, and like the video helps me out a lot. If you want to do a little bit of extra, you can also become a member of the channel for only $1.99 a month. You can become a member of the channel. You can also do one-time donations through PayPal. Address is in the video description, or you can do it by YouTube Super Thanks, whichever would be the most convenient for you. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.